Hi everyone, it's that time again when you might be starting to think about your year end. The year end process itself is straightforward. It's a simple wizard that includes a few options. However, before this, there's the preparation stage, ensuring you've posted everything, and of course, it involves running reports. But do you understand your reports and also the opportunities that you have to develop them? Ensuring they're accurate, but also that they provide you with a correct level of detail. Throughout January and February, we're running a series of live webinars to help develop your knowledge and understanding of the management reports available in Sage 50 accounts. We'll be starting with the basics, understanding nominal records and the structure of the nominal ledger. This is also ideal if you need to create new nominal codes. Following on from this, we'll examine the chart of accounts looking at all aspects, including adding new layouts and editing existing ones. Our attention then turns to the management reports themselves, the trial balance, the profit and loss, and of course the balance sheet. We'll explain how to run them, what they show, and most importantly, how the figures calculate. We want you to be confident. On the management report session, one of the most common scenarios we're asked about is where you haven't yet run your year end, but need to generate a profit and loss report for your next financial year. We've got your back with this and have a specific webinar that explores the options you have available, whether it's running reports for your new financial year or even a previous one. The last webinar in the series looks at reconciling your age debtors and age creditor reports at year end, ensuring that the balances agree with the figures on your trial balance and the balance sheet. Of course, this could be done at any time, such as part of your month-end process. So come along and we'll demonstrate what to check and how to run them to ensure everything agrees. If you'd like to attend any or all of these sessions to help develop your knowledge and boost your confidence, then simply head along to sage.co.uk/webinars and register for your free place. These, along with loads of other topics, including how to run your year end, are available. See you soon.
Hi, everybody. You might be approaching the end of your financial year, and it's the perfect time to get your Sage 50 accounts in order. The year end process itself is simple. It doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro or if it's your first time, it's just a few steps in the wizard. But before you dive in, there are some important checks and housekeeping tasks that will just make everything run smoothly. Things like archiving your company data just keeps it organized and improves performance. We'll show you how to create an archive and why it's a good habit. Then there's backing up your data, which is essential before making any changes, and we'll share best practice just to ensure your backups are reliable. And avoid accidental postings into a closed period by setting a lock date. It's quick to do and it saves headaches later. We'll also guide you through the year end wizard as well, step by step, so you can complete the process with confidence. If you need to tidy up old or unused records, we'll show you how to do that as well in our Delete Your Records webinar. And then we'll also cover how to clear the audit trail. It can help speed things up, and we'll explain when it's appropriate and how to do that safely. So to help you to prepare, we're hosting a series of live webinars throughout January and February. These sessions will give you practical tips and demonstrations so you feel confident about your year end and keep your accounts in great shape. Don't miss this opportunity to start the new year with clean, organised data and peace of mind. Make sure you reserve your spot today at sage.co.uk/webinars, and we look forward to seeing you there. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. So today we're going to be looking at clearing out old records that are no longer in use. And this time we're going to be concentrating on clearing out those old invoices, orders, and quotations. My name's Laura, and I'm going to be the host for today. And we've also got Michael in the background who's just waiting for any questions that you may have as well. So make sure if you do have any questions, don't keep them to the end, just get them popped in there and keep him busy. Just as usual, before we get started, just some housekeeping rules as well. So your mic will be muted automatically, but you will see there is a little question icon on the toolbar where you can submit those questions for Michael there. So make sure you get them popped across. I am also going to be including the handouts, or the slides, sorry, I should say, in the handout section, as there are some links on there at the end, which you might find useful. So if you do want to do that, make sure you download that during the session there. And as always, there's the printer friendly version. So if you do want to make some notes, you can print that out as well. So as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at clearing out old records. And this session, we're concentrating on those orders, quotations, and invoices that you're no longer requiring your live data. Going to be going through some demonstrations around this as well, so we can see what it looks like in the program and just answering any questions that you may have too. And anything we don't get answered live today, we will get an email across to you after the session. So don't worry if we do miss you out. Just means, or just depends on how many questions that we get coming through there. But don't worry, you will get an answer to your question. And at the end, we've also got some links to any guides on the topic there. So if like I say, if you do want to download those, make sure you do it during the session there. But first of all, what I'd like to do is just run a poll just to see what areas of the program you are using on there. So I'm going to pop a poll on your screen there. So that should be popping up there now. And I just want to see which areas do you currently use. So do you use invoice and credits? Are you using sales orders and purchase orders if you're on the professional level of the software? And are you using quotations? Because these are the areas that we're looking at today. So just to give us an idea of the areas that are most commonly used there. Don't worry, there's no sort of right or wrong answer for this one. Just want to gauge an idea. And you can choose more than one answer as well on there. So it might be that you use all three. I'll just give you a moment there just to get that filled in. And see those answers coming across there. Still got a couple more coming in. I'll end that in just a second. Yeah, it doesn't look like we've got any more coming in there. So I'll end and I'll share that. Don't worry if you didn't get time to answer that there. But we've got, it works out that we've got 9 people, going to a small session today. So that's quite nice. We've got nine of you using invoices and credits, 3 sales orders and purchase orders, and 2 using the quotations there. So just to give us an idea of where you're using the program really. So why should you look at clearing out your records? So clearing out your records is a completely optional task. So it's not something that you have to do, but it just ensures that the data that you use on a day-to-day basis is up to date. Having just relevant data can just make it easier and quicker for searches and filters to work as well for you. And clearing out the old data can speed up general processing in the software in some cases as well. And now what I will say is if you are experiencing speed issues, please bear in mind it could be external environmental factors as well. So things like how your data is set up. So if you're using a server or if the data is local, if and how quickly your computer works as well. But if you've got a lot of data in the program, that's also going to contribute to it as well. Like I said, though, it is a completely optional task. You don't have to do this. The cons to this task is that it removes information from your live data. So you need to think about how far back you want your live data to go. Now, remember, you can still get a hold of the old data if you do clear it out on there, because you will take a backup before you do anything and an archive. But it's just worth thinking about how far back you want your live data to go there. For compliance purposes, you always have the data in a form of a backup or an archive, so you don't need to be holding on to, say, 10 years worth of data or 10 years worth of records, sorry, in your live data. It's just worth having to think about there. Yes, it's deleting those records, but you can still access them should you need to. So preparation. So before making any big changes, like deleting records, we always recommend taking a backup of your data. Just means you have all that information. If you're going to remove it, you've always got it in a backup there. What we also recommend doing is taking an archive of the company data too. And the archive's a bit different to a backup, and it's just that it's a read-only copy of your data that you can go back into without having to sit and wait while things restore back in, just like opening another company. We are running a webinar on the company archive in more detail next Wednesday at 11. The sign up link's just on the slide there as well. But I am going to run just a quick demo on it just for taking the archive, because I think if you're thinking of deleting any records or anything, it can seem a bit daunting. But you'll see that once you sort of delete it, if you've taken that archive, everything's still available for you anyway. So what I'll do is I'll pop in to my program and I'm just going to quickly show you the archive first of all on there. So the archive option, you would have taken a backup, okay? The next thing you'd be looking at doing is just taking that archive, which is just in tools at the top, then in period end, and then we've got the option to archive company. Now, if you can't see that option, it might be down to your user credentials. So anybody that logs in as manager can have a look and just see if you've got access rights to that. But essentially, you can take an archive here. I'll not go into it in too much detail because it is a webinar in itself, but you can amend the description, the folder name if you want to. And I'm just going to say, okay, just to take in that archive. And you can see there, it's fairly straightforward. It's really quick when it takes it on there because it's a snapshot of everything. That's my archive taken, okay? If you were going to be then going back into your archive, again, really straightforward. We're just going to go to File at the top, click on Open, and we're going to choose Company Archive. And you'll get a list of all of your archives on here. And if I scroll down, there's that one that I've just taken today. I've got a couple that I've taken today there, but there's the one that I've literally just taken. And it's just a case of clicking on that and clicking Open. But I'll go into that a bit later on there just to show you the archive as well. But I just want to show you how easy it is to take an archive. And we'll have a look at what the archive looks like at the end so we can see what the difference is there, okay? But you can see it's really straightforward there. So for deleting invoices, we're going to have a look at invoices first of all. And there's a couple of ways to remove invoices. You can do this manually, which we're going to have a look at in a moment. And you can also use something called the data management tool, which we'll have a look at a bit later on there. Deleting manually, you can use things like a filter to help you select records to be deleted, which saves you time. You might also want to remove invoices, say prior to a certain date or before a certain invoice number. So you can also apply a filter just to show the ones that you want to delete. Highlight those ones using the swap and clear option on there just to make it a bit quicker, and then just delete that. And we'll look at that in just a second, just so you can see what it looks like. Remember that deleting a record from the Invoices and Credits module that's been updated to the ledgers does not remove any related transactions from the customer activity, transactions, or adjusted stock, or adjust your stock, sorry. Think of it a bit like a record, or like a record from the Invoice and Credits module being like a paper copy, like a receipt from a shop. So if you put the paper copy in the bin, the transaction still shows on your bank statement, even though you've gotten rid of that paper copy. But I'm going to pop into my system. We'll have a look at deleting some invoices manually there first of all, so you can see what that looks like. So I'll pop into my invoices and credits module just on the left-hand side there. So first of all, we'll just have a quick look. I'll just scroll back up to the top because it's opened them right down on the bottom there. So I'm at the top of my invoice list. I've got an invoice here, number 27, and this one has not been updated to the ledgers. So the only way that it exists is just in my invoices and credits module. I haven't clicked update ledgers yet, which would update my customers. If it's got stock on it, it would adjust stock, and there's nothing in the transactions module either. It's purely just in here, a bit like that paper receipt copy, okay? So I can just highlight that and I can just click delete at the top. We'll get the message just checking that we want to delete it, including those that have not been printed or posted. And I'm just going to say yes, and it'll just delete that for me. So we can see number 27 no longer exists there. Okay, it's nice and straightforward. If we pick another one, so invoice number 1, and I'll just double click on it just to open it and see here, we've got 2 lines on it. We've got wedding and beer on here. Okay, so we've got 2 lines on this invoice. And see, it's a product invoice and the invoice number, which is number 1 there. Now, if I close out of this and just show you, this one has been posted to the ledgers. So this one's updated my customer module. It's updated stock, because there was stock on there as well. And it's also posted a transaction within the transactions module. And we can find that in the transactions module if you wanted to look for that, just by clicking on transactions. And we can just click on find at the top. So if I bring that over, because it's opened up on the other window. So remember, it was invoice number 1. And the invoice number will show in the reference column. So I'm going to choose from my drop down there, the reference. And then instead of having any, because if I leave it as any, it's going to find any reference with number 1 in it. So it'll bring up, say, 13, because that's got a 1 in it. I'm going to just change this drop down to whole, just so it looks just for number 1. And I'm going to say find first. Close out with that. And we can see here, it's found the 2 invoices, the 2 lines on my invoice, the wedding and the craft beer on there. So those are my invoices that have been created. They've been updated to the ledgers. If I go into my invoice and credits module, and I'm just going to delete this, just to show you what I was talking about there, just to make it a bit more clear. If I delete this invoice in here, get that message again, just double checking that we want to delete that. And I'm going to say yes. And that'll delete that for me. So I've got no more invoice in here. So that's like that paper receipt copy that I've put in the bin. And I'll put that in the bin, but if we go to transactions, obviously it's still showing on there. And that's because it's been updated to the ledgers. Now, if you were thinking about, well, how do I delete them from if I've updated them to ledgers, that's more when you're going to be looking into corrections, which is a whole webinar which is separate on there. And there is one on our recordings page. We've recently done our or ran through corrections. I think it was last month, just in January, that we covered that. So there is a recording which covers how you can correct invoices and credits and things like that, which would be things like posting the opposite, a credit on there, which would adjust your stock, etc. But we're just looking at deleting invoices at the moment on this one. So you can see it's quite straightforward. It's just a case of highlighting them from here and deleting them. You can select multiple ones as well if you want to. So if we just highlight a few, you can do it that way and then just go to delete and it'll delete all of those ones for us. So again, nice and straightforward. But if you've got quite a lot that you need to delete, you can apply a filter. So if we click on filter at the top there, and it'll open up this window. It looks like it's in there from last time I ran this. But we'll use, in the drop-down box, we're going to use where. In the field, again, a drop-down box that you can choose from, but I'm going to use the invoice date. So I'm going to look at any invoices which are less than or equal to, and I'm going to use June. So I'll say the 30th of June, 2024. Okay, and I'm going to apply that filter. And what this will do is it'll just show me invoices that are on or before the 30th of June 2024. And then you can either highlight them one at a one, but if you've got reams and reams of them, you can click clear at the top, which will just unhighlight or unselect them. And you can click swap. And what that'll do is it'll just highlight everything for us. And then we can just go to delete. And what that'll do is it'll just delete the ones that we've got highlighted there. Just say yes to that, and it'll just delete them. And you can see there that it's just moved that down. We've got a 0 showing now. And we'll take the filter off, and it shows all those records again, just with those 12 that we've removed from there. So you can see it's nice and straightforward. You can just highlight them and delete them on there. Okay. And obviously you've got that filter option that you can pop a filter on there as well, just to however you want to sort of delete them. So to have a look at the data management, which I mentioned before as well. So there are recommended levels of data, which just make things run a bit more smoothly. You can check your data levels in a couple of places. So one of them is in your help and about screen. So help at the very top of the middle of your Sage screen there, and then about. In the middle column, you'll have one under invoice and orders. That'll tell you your invoice numbers on there, but you can also see the rest of your data figures in there too. But the screen that you can see there on the slide, so that's for our data management window. And that's for certain areas in the program. So it gives us the recommended levels for transactions, invoices, and customer and suppliers there. And we're going to have a look at this in a bit more detail in a moment as well in the program. But you can see the recommended level for transactions is about 250,000, invoices no more than about 50,000, and your customer and supplier records no more than about 5,000 on there. But when I worked on technical support, I did see higher levels than this. So just to point out, it's not a limit, it's just a recommendation on there. However, large volumes of data can start to slow you down. So processes such as backups and VAT returns, they can take longer to run and become harder to find records and transactions when applying filters because there's more data to search through. So if you think about if you've got 500,000 transactions and you're trying to apply a filter, it's going to have to go through more transactions to try and find the information on there. But the recommended levels can make your daily processing as efficient as possible. But when keeping historical records for compliance purposes, it's not essential to store them in your live company data. Instead, you can keep regular backups, for example. So if you run month end, when you run your year end as well, these can all be restored at any time if you need to. So if you were going to be audited, you can just restore a backup in. You've got all of the data there. And you can also keep company archives as well. So like we had a look there, it's a read-only copy of your historical data, and it can be accessed at any time just to view and run reports without having to restore a backup. And I'll show you in a minute as well how easy it is just to restore that archive. Well, you don't even need to restore it, you just open it like another company. But when we're in the data management tool, it also gives you an indication as to where your data sits with the recommended levels. So you can see here on this slide, a green tick means that it's all good and within that recommended level. The blue eye just means that you're approaching the top end of that recommended level, and the orange warning means you've exceeded it there. So the other way to clear out invoices or older invoices is using the data management tool, and we'll have a look at that in the program now. So I just pop back into my Sage there. So your data management sits again in tools at the top, in period end, and then we've got data management. So I'm going to select that, just tells us it's going to close all open windows, we'll lose any unsaved data. It's more if you were just in the middle of entering an invoice, for example, and you get this window, okay? So within here, it just tells us in order to make daily processing in Sage 50 accounts as quick and as efficient as possible, we recommend you only store digital records for the current and previous year in your live company. By removing all transactions and records that you no longer need to view regularly, you'll find that most tasks become much faster and you can still access your old data by opening an archive company or restoring a backup. And it just tells us that it just takes us through safely removing all transactions there. Under compliance, it just tells us that compliance purposes, just keep regular backups of your data. And provided you have backups and or a company archive, you don't need to retain historical records in your live company data. So I'm just going to click continue. In the first screen, it gets us to take a backup on there. And then it tells us to take an archive, which is optional. And I've said this on a previous webinars before, it's much better to have an archive and not need it than to need that archive and not have it. So I would always say, just take the archive. If you don't need it, that's great. But if you did need it and you haven't taken one, things can be a little bit trickier on there. So always just take that. For the purpose of the demonstration, I'm going to skip past that step though, just to make it a bit quicker on there. So you're not sitting, watch my data backup. So this is the window that you saw before on the slide there. So it just tells us we can have a look at our transactions, and I've got a very small data set within mine, as you can see. But from here, you can clear the audit trail, which Michael's gone through webinars. We've been running the Clear Audit Trail webinars recently. They're on our recordings page 2. We've got delete invoices. I'm going to cover that in a bit in a moment. And then we've got reviewing customer and supplier records on there as well. And I ran that last week. I am going to be running it again on Thursday at 11 as well there too. So if you do want to have a look at clearing out those, make sure you get signed up for that one. But I'm just going to click on deleting invoices on here. just to bring up and show you what it looks like. So it just tells us that the process will delete the following where the date is on or before the date specified below. And this is a date that we can choose. There's a little calendar where you can click on or you can free type into it. What it does tell us is it'll clear out invoices, it'll clear out credit notes, but it will also clear out invoice quotations and invoice pro formas. So whereas I went through manually deleting invoices before, we can also manually delete quotations, but we can also use the data management tool to clear out quotations and invoices as well. So I'm going to just choose the date. I'm going to put in here, we'll put up until the end of 2024. So if we say the 31st of the 12th, 2024 in there. Okay, so I'm going to run it up to then. When I click on delete invoices, it will just run through and it'll clear out anything prior to that date for me. Okay, so I'm going to click on delete invoices. It'll run through. It's told me it's deleted 197 of them. I'm going to say OK to that. And if we just note the number, so we did have 526 sitting in there. I'm just going to close that window, and that's now gone down to 329. So it's cleared those out nicely for us. So you can see it's a quite nice and efficient way of doing it. Some people prefer to do it manually, but you've also got this data management tool for your invoices and your quotations there too. Okay. So I'll close out of that there. So that's how to delete both invoices and quotations using the data management tool. And we've also had a look at deleting invoices manually as well. So I'm going to pop back to the slides and have a look at deleting orders now. So sales orders and purchase orders, so that's only going to be available if you're using the professional level of the software. So if you don't have this option available, you may be on either standard or the essentials version, but bear with me because there is relevant information following this, but I do need to cover deleting orders as well. So orders need to be deleted manually. There's no option within the data management tool for this, but you can apply a filter and bulk delete just to make it much quicker on there, a bit like we did within the invoices manual when we did that manually there. When you delete a sales order, any stock that you've got allocated would be removed there as well, which you can just see highlighted on the product record. And I'm going to go into it in the demonstration as well. And for purchase orders, any stock on order, that's removed as well because you're deleting that order. So the stock is no longer needs to be associated with it. So we'll pop into the program and we'll just have a look at what that looks like there. So like I say, it's quite much the same as deleting your invoices and credits there. But if I go into products and services, first of all, and I'm just going to pick on beer again for the demonstration purposes. And if I just double click on it, just to open up the record, we can see here, so these are the windows that we were looking at before. So just in the status bar there, on the details tab, so I've double clicked on the record, it's opened up the product record, I'm in details and just under status there. So you can see there I've got 5 allocated and I've got 7 on order. Now we can see which sales orders and purchase orders these relate to by clicking on the little cross. What it'll do is it'll open up a window. I'll drag that over so you can see it. Tells us that the 5 that we've got allocated, these 5 here, relate to these order numbers, these sales order numbers, okay? So if I pop into my sales orders, I can just highlight number 2 and delete it. We'll pop back in here just to see what it does, what it changes within the allocated number there, okay? So I'll close out with that. I'm going to go and have a look for sales order number 2. I'm just going to go to sales orders on the left. And this is my sales order here. I'll just double click on it to open it. Just give that a second. So we can see the sales order there, sales order number 2, it was for beer, and it was for the quantity of 1 there, okay? And I'm just going to delete this one. We can see it's fully allocated. So that was one that was allocated to our stock when we looked at it before. So I've got it highlighted, and all I'm going to do is just click delete. Just checks that we want to delete it, including those that have not been allocated or dispatched. I'm just going to say yes to that. And it'll just take that out of there. So now it jumps 1 to 3 now. If I go back to products and services, I'm just going to double click on that now. And we'll just have a look. And now we've just got the 4 allocated. So what it does is when we're deleting any sales orders or any purchase orders that relate to the status, either the allocated or on order, it will reduce these because they're no longer needed. That goes exactly the same for on order. So if I click on the little cross, it tells me, gives me a list of those purchase orders that relate to what's on order here. So I've got, say, this one here, the euro purchase order number 3. If I close out of that, if I go back into, if I go to purchase orders this time, and there's my number 3 purchase order, tells me that it's on order as well. I'm just going to click delete, just double checks that we want to actually delete that. We haven't hit it by mistake. I'm just going to say yes to that. Then if I pop back into products and services, double click on it again, I'll just have a quick look at that there. And we can see now I've only got 6 on order, so it's reduced that. So it's pretty much the same as deleting your invoices. The only sort of difference that I wanted to show you there was if you've got stock involved, it's going to amend your allocated and your on order stock there when you're deleting those sales orders or purchase orders. But again, when you're in sales orders or purchase orders, you can use a filter. You can apply a filter on there. You can highlight multiple ones as well if you want to, and just delete them too. So it's pretty much the same as we've got on there for your invoices. You can highlight and delete them on there. So I'll come back out of there. So that's your sales orders and your purchase orders. Deleting a quotation, so that one's slightly different in that you can only delete one if it's marked as lost from the actual quotation window there. We saw earlier that quotations can be deleted using the data management tool, but I'm also going to run through how you can delete them manually as well there. So there is a quick filter, which you can just see on the screen there. So you can filter them just to show all of the lost or all the ones that are marked as lost on there, just to make it easier to bulk delete. Then you can use the clear swap to highlight everything and delete them if you just want to clear out lost ones. Quotations also show on your invoice and credits module as well, and your sales orders, depending on how you've got your system set up to convert those quotes. So if you're using the professional level, you might have quotes set up for ones that are marked as one, convert them to a sales order, or you might have them converting to an invoice. It just depends on how you've got that set up. Other levels of the software, because you won't have the sales order module, you'll have yours automatically converting to an invoice. And that's how I've got mine set up in my system as well. But irrespective of the status, you can still delete these from either the sales order or the invoices and credits module. We'll have a look at that now. So I'm going to pop back into the program and we'll have a demonstration on that. So if I just pop back into here. So like I said, these can be deleted using the data management tool, but if we're looking at deleting them manually, we'll have a look in our quotations here, and I've got 3 left. So because I ran the data management tool before, it's cleared anything prior to the end of December 2024. But at the moment, I have got an open one, a won one, and a lost one on here. So if I try and delete my open quotation, for example, do that, I get a message and it just tells me only quotes with a status of lost can be deleted. Okay, so from this particular window, I can't delete my one quote and I can't delete my open quote. The only ones I can delete are my lost quotes. So if I highlight that, click delete, and it just tells us that this will also delete the associated sales order or invoice which may have been posted. Delete the select. Do we want to delete the selected quotation? And I'm just going to say yes to that because it's just going to delete that. It's lost. We don't need it. And it just clears that out of there. So that's quite straightforward on there for it. Okay. Now, the other 2 that we've got, so we've got an open quotation and we've also got a won quotation. Now, we can't delete them from this particular screen, but depending on how you've got yours set up, so mine will convert to an invoice on there. So if I just pop into my invoices and credits module, and we'll just have a look for number 42. If we just go back up to the top there, there's my quote there. So this is my quotation for number 42. So just to show you in quotations, that's it there. It's open. Peter Young, £7.20. and that's my quote there. So it's exactly the same. Okay. Now what you can do is you can delete your won and your open quotes from this window. So if you've got them converting into your invoices and credits, if I highlight this one and I just go to delete, and it just tells us, do we want to delete that, including those that have not been printed or posted? It's not been updated to the ledgers, it's just sitting in my quotations window. And I'm just going to say yes to that. And then we'll pop back to quotations and you'll see it's deleted it from there. So quotations are slightly different. So the rules for quotations are, if it's marked as lost, you can delete it from this window. That's fine, no problem. If it's marked as won or if it's marked as open, you can still delete them. They're probably the quickest way is using the data management tool because you can pop a date in, clear them down that way. But you can delete them from either the invoices and credits module or the sales order module. Just depends on how you've got them set up. So if you've got them going into sales orders, you would just have a look in your sales orders module and it would show in here. I'll just quickly show you where that is as well. So if you're on the professional level, if you've got them converting to your sales orders on there, if you go to settings in invoice and order defaults, just to show you what I mean by that. If you're on standard or essentials, they're just going to go straight to invoice and credits module. But if I just pop into here, so I've got here convert quotes to, so I've got mine set to invoices, but if we use the drop down, you can choose to have them convert to a sales order. So that's just what I mean by that there. Just in case anybody was sort of wondering how you can change that on there. Okay. So there's another thing I just want to show you as well when deleting records. So if I pop back to my slides there, and that is compressing your data as well. So following deleting records, and just to reduce the size of your data, you must compress the data. The best way that I was found to explain this, especially when I was on tech support, was if you think about it like you've got a book full or a bookcase full of books, you remove some of those books and you're left with ones that are scattered all over the shelves. What compressing it does is it neatly puts all the books to one side and gives you the rest of the space as free space. So it basically just tidies it up for you. So if you delete a record from your invoice list, the size of the data file, it's not going to reduce until the invoice ledger is compressed there. What I'd always say is just ensure that you've got an error-free backup prior to running this routine as well. But I'm going to pop back into my system just so I can show you how you can run that data compression. It's really, I mean, it is really quick on mine because I've got a local set of data and it's very small. But just depending on how much data that you've got, and if your data's on a server as well, might take a bit longer there. But if I show you in mine, just so you can see how that works. So if I just pop back into my program there, and we're just going to pop to File at the top, and then we're just going to go into Maintenance. And you may have seen this before. It's where you can check your data, where you can view your last results as well. But on the right-hand side, we've got the compressed data. And it even says if you've previously deleted large amounts of data, run this option to reclaim disk space used by those deleted records. So when I click on compressed data, everything opens on my other screen. I do apologize. You're presented with this window here, and it looks like you can't tick anything. But if you just unselect compress all data files, because sometimes that can take quite a while. If you've got a lot of data and you compress absolutely everything, it can take a little while. So just compress the ledgers that you need to. So say if it was just the invoices that I'd looked at, I could just tick invoices. And if I removed sales orders, purchase orders, we can highlight a few of them at a time on there. But if you blink, you'll miss it in mine because it's very, very quick. But I'm just going to click on compress data and you can see it's done. And what that's done is it's just reclaimed that space back that was used by those files that we've removed out of the program there. I'll close that, and that just means it's nice and tidy in the background. The other thing I quickly wanted to show you was the archive as well. So we took that archive prior to removing anything out of the program. So if I pop back to my invoices and credits module, and we can see here, I've got 327 invoices. So say in a week's time, I thought, oh, I need to have a look at that invoice for whatever. I deleted that last week, but I need to see it, okay? We go to File at the top and Open. And if we choose Company Archive, click that, and it'll just tell us it's going to close all open windows there. Now, remember, if you can't see the archive option, it's down to your user settings on there. Somebody who's logged in as manager can help you with that, but I go through that in a lot more detail on the archiving webinar as well. And if I scroll down on here, we can see there's my archive that I took earlier on. So I'm just going to click that and click open. And it'll just have a little think about it. And it'll just ask me to log in. Just give it a second there. And if you think about if you were trying to restore a backup in, how long does it take you to restore a backup in to then be able to log into it? Is it as quick as that? Because it's probably not, depending on how much data that you've got. We can see along the top that I'm in an archive, so we know that we're not in the live data. But if I now go to my invoices and credits, we can see there all of those records that are deleted, they're all still in here. So you can still go into them, you can still have a look at them, everything's still there. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things to have a look at is that the data's still there, it's just not in your live data. And your live data is nice and tidy, working more efficiently for you, but you've still got all the old records, all the old data in the form of a backup and in the form of an archive there. To go back into your live data, nice and easy, just file at the top, open, and open company data. Again, just tells you it's going to close all unsaved windows there. And it'll just get you just to log back into your live company. My details back in. And then you can see along the top there, it no longer tells me I'm in an archive. I'm back in my live data there. So how quick was that? So if you think you've got to restore a backup into to get something to then restore back to your live data, even if you were just doing it into a separate company or the practice data, it's still going to take you a while. Whereas you can just pop straight into an archive and it's been less than 2 minutes. And you can see there, we've now got my live set of data with less data in there. So just for a summary on there, so clearing out your records, it is an optional task. You're under no obligation to complete these. It's more just practice for good housekeeping there. Clearing out all data there, it may allow you to work more efficiently as well in your data set. So if you've got a large data set, you can check that from looking in that data management tool, as we looked at earlier when we logged in as manager, or you can you can also have a look in the help and about screen as well, just to see how much data that you've got in there. But you might find that clearing out the old data on there, the old records, just allows the program just to work more efficiently because it's not having to search through and process as many records. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're experiencing speed issues, just bear in mind it could be external environmental factors that also impact that as well. But for sure, if you do have a lot of data, that can certainly sort of add to it. Always ensure that you take a full backup and ensure that you've got an archive prior to clearing out records. It just means if you put the wrong date in and you cleared out things that, up to the wrong date, well, you just restore it back and just do it again. You're not going to lose anything that way. And records will only sort of clear down if they meet their certain criteria on there, but that's more sort of for your suppliers and your customers on there, which we'll cover more in detail when we go through that on Thursday. But compressing the data, that's quite a big thing at the end there as well, just allows you to reclaim that disk space back, which means that Sage is tidying up things so it takes up less space on your computer. I've also included some links on here, which is more just around what we've been looking at in the demonstrations there. So things like tidying up your data after year end, removing unwanted quotations, invoices, credits on there or orders, and compressing your data. So it just goes through it in a bit more detail for you on there. If you like something like me, I like something sort of on hand that I can read through as well. And then there's the link to the help centre as well for anything else that you might need to have a look at. Keep this open just for a while longer. Just it looks like Michael's on top of all of the questions on there. Don't forget you're also going to get a recording of today's session in around about an hour's time via email as well. So if you want to watch it back at your own pace, you can do that. I appreciate sometimes when you're watching things for the first time, it can be quite a lot to take in. I tend to like to watch things a second time and take notes there as well. Just helps me learn better. But you can also access our webinars page at sage.co.uk/webinars. All the past recordings are free to view in there, along with signing up for the upcoming webinars as well. The link's just on the slide for you too. All of our March webinars are out there now as well for you. We're running through a new badging series on there, and we're also going to be covering bank feeds on there as well. So there's quite a few things happening in March, so make sure you take a look there. And if you haven't heard, we've also got our community hub, which if you've not seen that before, it's just an online forum for Sage 50 accounts users to share knowledge, swap ideas and solve problems on there. It's completely free to join. You can ask questions where other users, along with Sage experts, can help and advise you. Or if you see something that you know the answer to, you can pop on and pop an answer on there as well. But you can keep updated with what's happening on there, and it's open 24/7. But there's a link just on the slide which takes you straight to the hub. And I've also included an additional survey there, which I hope you don't mind taking a quick look at if you haven't already. It's just to help us shape our learning around what matters to you most. There's a QR code on there, which you can just either scan with your phone, or there is a link on the slide there as well. But that does bring us to the end of today's session. So I hope you found that useful. It looks like we've got all the questions answered on there as well. Thank you to Michael. But as always, you will get a survey when leaving today's session. So I'd love it if you could leave us any feedback or any comments on there. We do love reading the comments, even if it's something about, what else you'd like to see maybe, or if there's anything you'd like to see done differently. But for now, thank you for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and I hope the sun's shining where you are too. Thanks for now.